What's good YouTube, and welcome to the house. I don't know if I'm going to start out every budget / cards to watch market watch with an I told you so, but the moment the $99.99 cap was ripped away from vendors at event and they could sell cards for whatever they wanted to, and you probably experienced this firsthand at the UDS if you were there, well, I said that cards were no longer going to be clinging to that $120 mark, and there's mathematical reasons for it on the market that tie into other regions. So let's just see what happens if a card's at $120 on market and vendors are selling that online. It's also from estimated value pulled and other factors than just prices at events. But let's say they take their 13% fee and then they also pay $375 in shipping. Well, isn't that weird? Isn't that strange? What a coinky-dink. Now that vendors can sell anything at any prices at events, they're no longer interested in tying to the price where they can constantly deal with every card in the room and make the maximum trade value off of the best cards. Now they can go even further and beyond, and we're seeing that pricing with Lightning Storm. And this is motivated selling. This is surprisingly what it takes to be a motivated seller. It quickly rises to 140 right now. It's a mad scramble, and it's somewhat unfortunately natural, as anybody playing a going second deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Wants 3 of these in their deck most likely, and then also almost everybody's side decking them for when they're forced to go second against going first combo decks. It's good against the back row decks, and Konami didn't bring us Harpy Feather Duster off the ban list in order to sell this card, and they also limited red reboots, so people really don't like dealing with back row. This is majorly the answer, and with that 99 cap ripped off, well, who knows what the next card will be. Looking at you, Magician Souls, that they're definitely going to want to keep pressing up in the room at events, and then vendors are going to look at it and go, wow, yeah, okay, I'm only pulling X of these per case. They're really carrying the case. It deserves to be more. Starlight Safer is going up just a little bit to note. It's not like it's skyrocketing or anything, but people really are buying into that rocket hype is just the subnote of this card being on Market Watch. That being said, let's get into everything budget today and my kind of theory behind why you should be getting them sooner than later, starting with actually the M. Cole Games playmat here. Him and I are doing a joint venture on this one, so I'm personally vested in it, but we wanted to prove that we could bring some of the most affordable playmats on market while working with artists in the industry. And let's take away the waifu tax. This is $27 shipped in the USA, limited to 2 per customer, and there's only 29 of them left. I'll link that down below. You're supporting me, you're supporting Robbie directly when you get this mat, and it's by far one of the cheapest on the market that you can get for yourself. The Spellbook engine is going up slowly. It's not skyrocketing, but man, are the cheapest versions of it almost off the market completely. 27 prices left for the Infinity Chaser Super Rare. I would want this card sooner than later. Kind of reminds me, the Invoke engine actually works with this, by the way, but it was low forever, and then it got its uses, baby bumped up, got more uses, skyrockets. Look at Spellbook of Knowledge, the Ultra Rare. First editions, still around the $3 mark for the Mega Pack, and then you go towards the First Ed Originals, they're around $4, so there is incremental increases depending on the version you get. I would always say get First Ed Original, but with it being from a Mega Pack here where it's the same rarity as the reprint, you could realistically go for either version. While these are cheaper, I'd still go ahead and get them. The rest of the engine is spiking heavily on the Ultimate Rares, towards $50 for both Book and Blue Boy. There's commons thanks to the Spellcaster, the Order of the Spellcaster structure deck recently. That's the Pendulum one that gave Triff Mega Powers. And I would say, well, I would still get the holographic versions, but if you find the structure deck, it's just kind of a bonus that you put the engine together and get Droll and Lockbirds for right now. It's not bad. Burning Abyss has a lot of attention for the next Master Rule. Some of the buyouts still lingering and keeping prices up. It's really weird that Commandante is so cheap to me, though. And I get it doesn't feel very good if you've played Burning Abyss before to not put a secret rare Dante on board. It's a filthy common, I predict these to be $5 after a while, if not the gold versions to be back towards 8, towards 10, under the Master Rule 5 hype. A lot of people are forgetting that hype right now because the current format is interesting. Weird things are happening. It's super diverse. People are excited to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, but that Master Rule and the April ban list are around the corner, and tons of people are going to come out swinging with Burning Abyss. There's only 47 sellers on this common because it comes from a $30 MSRP structure deck. There's not going to be that many of them floating around, as the structure deck did fail and vendors didn't just open it up like the other legendary structures. In fact, you can still get it cheaper because it didn't really produce great singles that people highly desired. So one of the top cards out of here is Dante at under $1. Be sure to have your copies. Now, I'm not going to stick to 5 and under for this market watch. Remember, Beatrice has spiked multiple places before, hanging in at $7 right now, only has one printing. I'm going to be doing $10 and unders for this budget market watch, and I think Beatrice is definitely a card you want to have access to, even in other versions of decks. Like now you're going to be summoning and say Heroes, the ability into the main monster zones for certain cards. While you might be hard making Beatrice early on if you don't happen to Destiny Fusion, depending on your hand and how it goes out. I think Heroes will have a lot to explore under the next Master Rule. That's just an example of something that can overlay 2 6s, though. So many more decks could hard make Beatrice under the Master Rule, and you'll want to look at her for that, and Burning Abyss. Speaking of Burning Abyss, speaking of really awesome streamers, Farfa, if you recall past formats, still only has 2 printings. Burning Abyss gets to use this to force people's plays, negations, cards early, and this was a very expensive card even for the rare before. There's not a ton of quantities. Have this while it's cheap if you're looking at BAs instead of waiting. Block Dragon is sitting at $5. People are looking towards Adamantia, even parroting that this has to get banned. It's going to get banned on the April list. I don't know that Konami, looking at all the Master Rule 5 stuff in upcoming decks and wanting to support Adamantia for the WCQ season, would be hitting Blocky Boy. At 5 and under still, with so few sellers, this is definitely a card to watch. By the way, if you're shopping TCG Player, please be using my TCG Player link in the description down below. It supports the channel directly for cards you'd already be buying, and there's a lot to be looking around that. Gladiator Beast, it's one of those cards that floats in and out of formats, and, you know, Sky Striker was a great place for it to maybe try to do something. The funniest duels were to watch it just completely shut them down. In Dual Power, it got a reprint, but that's another $30 MSRP set. And before that, these were the only versions that existed, and there's no new version after this. I could definitely see this being a $5 card at some point. Don't be left behind with it. And the secrets are still holding almost towards their hyper prices of 10 to 12. And the DTs, well, they're probably not going to go down anytime soon. I would just kind of peek at this. Like, have yourself a $1 card. Whenever you're shopping, filling your cart, see if that seller has an Gladiator Beast. Don't not have this freaking card. And you also can, I know Exterio is such a better card, you also could bring this out with Waking the Dragon, since it doesn't have a restrictive choke point, but it's not what I would be bringing out even on a budget. Utopia the Lightning is up for all versions over time. They just happen to not really be on market that much, telling me that the ultimate rare is probably undervalued. I've thought that for a very long time. But Utopia Double, also a fan favorite card because, hey, we're getting Utopia power. It's an OTK enabler piece that goes along with one of Yuma's favorite cards. So this, I don't see it getting reprinted soon, continues to trek up. While some sellers are going in with high quantities right now at these lower prices, it's higher versus what it was. These are their final investments is what it's telling me. These are their final quantities most likely, and once those are gone off market, it's headed towards 10 to 12 just like Lightning, and it's played way more than Lightning right now, although I like Lightning as a generic tool in general. Michael Campos was playing some Utopic Spice at the UDS over in Oklahoma, and I really like Utopic Onomatopoeia, also out of Dual Power, as literal bulk to people still. They're not picking up on this engine at all. This would probably be one of the more expensive pieces of the engine once people do catch on. It's ridiculous to me that people are not actually moving towards what innovation showed in the metagame and going for this kind of an engine. It's really freaking cool. Magician's Soul Foolish Burials you pretty much any spellcaster that is 6 or higher out of your deck completely for free. So something that I'm surprised hasn't been jumping too much and maybe has a coolant thanks to its newest version, which has the lowest prices, or actually lowest amount of different prices on market, yet still the lowest price for it, is Secret Rare Dark Magic Veil. Looks amazing. This card reads pay 1,000 life points, special summon a dark spellcaster type monster from your hand or graveyard. There's a free Foolish Burial here. So many people have access to this card that are playing meta. We have seen this pop up in a couple of topping decks, but people argue if it's good or not. Still, people love having their options. Highest rarity, still this cheap. Have your copies, just have your playset straight up. Don't sleep on this. Mind Control was in Dual Devastator, and I love looking at Dual Devastator penny stocks, but it also has an ultra rare version out of Legendary Collection 3 Yugi's World that is almost the same price, towards $1.50 for all of these unlimbs and even first eds, but then it does quickly rise up towards that $2-ish mark. We saw Scott, I believe, main these in his deck earlier. Oh yeah, there's different Mind Controls. Pressed back too many times. Live editing done cheap. But I think that since this version is cheap as 5 and is quickly 657 for the original game promo super rare, I would be looking at these two. These could easily be $4 to $5 cards in the future, and proportionally this 12 to 15 should it keep seeing meta play, even though it's in Dual Devastator, because Dual Devastator keeps having certain cards blow out in price and then others go up as they're reprinted, and this is heavy in the meta. I feel like super underestimated and works very, very well with the Invoked. Very freaking well. Isolde is one of the ultimate cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Histories as an enabler, and it could just take one Broken Warrior boy coming out to make this just super viable. And of course, running equips, oh no, in your deck, there's enough good equips to run her, and I keep seeing mishmash decks able to abuse her. The originals, first editions, still very affordable, and the super rares are towards dollars. Just have your 2, because the maximum you'll ever be playing is 2. Have your 2 copies and don't get caught with your pants down paying more later, because I don't think Konami will reprint this anytime soon. In fact, I think they'll end up banning it if it becomes problematic before ever reprinting it again. That's just my mentality on it, though. Psyframe Driver, with all the Psyframe hype going on right now, Psyframe Driver Ultra Rare, I think, is a heavily overlooked thing, because I remember the commons. Remember when the commons spiked up in price to like $5 plus? That was ridiculous, and this brought a coolant and a huge quantity to market, but now it's running out on the market slowly. People love hollowing out their deck, mix and matching rarities, and while there's high quantities from some sellers, I just think that this, by the WCQ, if Psyframes continue to be played within the metagame as a hand trap, Driver will probably be towards $3, and they're only 50 cents right now. It's a funny penny stock. Speaking of Battles of Legend, Gladiator Beast Tamer Editor is very interesting to me towards the new Master Rule. This was a deck, when the Master Rule was announced, a lot of people were talking about, and on Dueling Book rated, top rated, I know that's not saying a lot, there's a guy with 1,000 plus rating grinding the heck out of this deck and beating a lot of good players. And this gets better under the next Master Rule. It reads, must first be special summoned from your extra deck by shuffling the above cards, and it takes 2 level 5 or higher. It's not the hardest thing to do anymore. Cannot be used as a fusion material, but that you're not stuck in the extra monster zone anymore. Once per turn, you can special summon a Gladiator Beast fusion monster from your extra deck, except for himself, ignoring its summoning conditions. Also to note, that's just not a hard once per turn, so if you can get rid of him, bring him back, do that kind of stuff, you can use that again. And then at the end of the battle phase, you can tag out and special summon a Gladiator Beast monster from your deck. So for all that work, he has a decent attack stat. He just pulls anything you want out of the extra whatever tool you need. That is a Gladiator Beast fusion. Pretty darn cool card, actually. I can see why it's slowly rising in Battles of Legend and has had this kind of a market price, but you can still get it super cheap. But out of Light's Revenge, Man, that's a goodie but an oldie. Raid Raptor Force Strix, I feel like, is actually undervalued. I think that if it's not reprinted in the March set and we do get the Link monster, that you're going to see this skyrocket, and you also get it in the Luna White decks right now, so have your copy. Just have them. Don't count on a reprint coming for him. Don't count on Konami to get everything in just 100 cards. I feel like risk versus reward, you know, towards that $7 mark, this is an okay purchase, and they've been flying off of the market. Cheap Mermail stuff is almost treated as bulk right now if you're just adding it on from certain sellers. So always check your cart and sellers. Like, Deep Sea is coming. I could see these being $3 cards in the future, not only for Megalo, Out of Shadows, and Valhalla, which this is the perfect time. People are ripping open those boxes, just chasing out of the invocation stuff. Like, think about, you know, your Mermail boys and the Deep Sea stuff coming, and also Secret Rare Abyssius. I know it's not Ultimate Rare. I could also see this being towards $3 should the deck pan out, and Mermail is also one of the most murmured decks coming towards Master Rule 5. Don't get caught looking only in the now, getting in the hype of the now. Look forward. Yes, there's a huge ban list coming, but Master Rule 5, I think they'll want to support the Deep Sea release, and Mermails probably will only get helped. Also, a very, very cheap deck right now, outside of, I know, Impermanence and Extravagance, which both could be in the March set if it follows the Rarity Collection, which is my big brain theory. This deck is very, very affordable for even its most max rarity of versions. Meloseek's been going up slowly, amazing card overall. I would have just have this deck on the side. It's still topping in droves, 4 of them, I believe, at the UDS, if I'm not mistaken. It's impressive the work that this keeps on doing. Stop sleeping. I know it's not everybody's playstyle. I know it's not everybody's thing, but have this deck while it's cheap, especially if you think you're going to go more control and back row towards the WCQ. But that being said, all of that's on the horizon. It's not necessarily for the now. These are all just suggestions from me on how to potentially move forward and be looking at the market. Thank you for watching today's Market Watch. I know it was a little bit long. I had a lot to talk about, giving reasonings on why with my market brain and player brain of cards I'd be keeping. It's not necessarily that they will spike. It's where I could see them if I was still buying and selling today, and getting on my brain on things that you might not have been thinking about in the now. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the conversation. Now, in 15 states on the Patreon and over in the UK, we picked up somebody from the UK. I do ship the rewards internationally. It is by letter untracked though, so I hope it gets to you, because all I can do is put the stamps on there to be affordable. But I do ship them internationally, and thank you for signing up. And to everybody that's been helping out with suggestions on Market Watch and wanting to see more of these, thanks for the feedback, and sorry to run so long.